Dad, talk about the next important thing on the calendar. The Super Bowl has passed. It's a little bit of a dead period, but in a few weeks, the NFL world will reconvene in Indianapolis for the combines. It'll be about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I was there last year, and this will be when Kyle won't go, but John Lynch will go, and he'll do a press conference, and we'll be able to ask him about Raheem Morris and the Seahawks. That'll be a big press conference.
Well, so what do we want to talk about? First of all, I'm going to do it in reverse order because Lynch will make himself available to the local media. I want to talk about some questions that are fair to ask him. And then we'll get into what they should be focusing on at the combine. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Iggy, if I were there with my personality and the fact that I had more standing in a way than you did because I represented newspapers and we were more secure from the Niners than you are as SI.com. And I apologize to SI.com.
That's the truth.
The question I would ask boldly in that media conference with Lynch is, name one specific thing you must do to make your roster better. Not we're looking to all possibilities low. No, I didn't ask you that, John. Name one specific thing. You went to Stanford, you can do it.
Yeah.
Name, are we offensive line, defensive line, running back? Name one specific thing. That's a question I would ask.
Well, what's funny about, I love that question. What's funny about that is like Kyle essentially did name one specific thing yesterday in the pregame for the Super Bowl, saying you got to run the ball to beat the Seahawks. All right, well, if you got to run the ball to beat the Seahawks, you tried it in every different which way this year. It didn't work. You need a new running back and a new offensive lineman. So you better be looking real hard at those two positions at the combine, running backs and offensive linemen. If you were to, the Niners took Mykel Williams with the 11th pick. Okay, fine. He's not much of a pass rusher yet. He could develop into one. Defensive lineman got hurt. Fine. The Seahawks picked about 6 picks later. They took a guard, and he's great. Gray Zabel. The Niners could have had him, but they didn't want him. They went defense. If the Niners were to take a guard this year in round 1, that would be a good pick as long as they get it right. They need to add as many first-rounders on that offensive line as possible.
So you feel that in Indianapolis, they should be – what are they looking at? They should
tackle centers, guards, running backs. You got to look at all of them, tight ends. And you need wide receivers too, but like you have Ricky Pearsall. You drafted a guy last year that you didn't even play in Jordan Watkins. You got guys. You don't have anyone on the offensive line. That you got to look at that.
Iggy, but we also said you win with defense. What would they be looking at on defense?
Jeez Louise. And that's what's so rough. You spent your first round pick last year on a defensive end, and you could argue that their biggest need right now is defensive end because Mykel Williams is kind of more like a defensive tackle who can defend the run. So you still need an edge rusher. You still need another linebacker next to Fred Warner. You need 2 safeties. That's a start.
2 safeties.
2 safeties. At least one safety. Okay, I mean, Jair Brown isn't good, and Malik Mustafa is like okay. He makes some solid tackles sometimes, but he does nothing in coverage for you. Nothing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Iggy, again, they have needs, desperate needs on both sides. Desperate needs on both sides.
Desperate needs. And I don't want to bring up ancient history, but like the Niners thought that they were past this or that the sin doesn't count anymore because they drafted Brock Purdy. They found Brock Purdy, but they're still paying for the fact that they threw all those picks away on Trey Lance and got nothing from it. They're still paying for it.
I agree. That Iggy, on this group that's running the team now, that's their original sin.
Yeah. And really for anyone else, it'd be a fireable offense. It's one of the worst trades of all time. You gave up 3 years worth of first round picks for a player who was not in the NFL, who played in Division II college football, was 20 years old and didn't work out. One of the worst trades ever executed, and these guys are all still employed, and we understand why, but it's still affecting them.
Yeah, right. And Iggy, the other thing that worries me about them, if they had those 3 first round picks, would they have picked
Yeah.
wisely?
Yeah. What they do, they're the opposite of Bill Walsh and John McVay. When those two were really in the zone, it seemed like they would trade down and have such a good feel for the draft board that they could get guys they targeted while picking up more assets. The Niners get excited and they'll trade up. And it's either they don't know exactly who they want, but they want to make a big move, or they do know who they want and they overestimate how far they have to go to get them. But when I'm afraid that the Niners are going to do something like that this year, where they weren't aggressive last year, and maybe they feel like they need to go all in, or they got to do something drastic to catch the Seahawks, and they trade up for someone that they shouldn't trade up for.
Bill had a real feel for the draft. He had a real feel for it. Um, I don't think John McVay had much to do with the draft, Icky,
Mm,
but the
okay.
scout Tony Rosano, he and again, Bill didn't always get along with people. He and Bill did they both wanted the credit. Let's give it 50-50. But he had this really brilliant personnel guy, really brilliant, and they made great picks. And Bill was happy to trade down and knew what he was doing. That's the thing. He didn't trade down willy nilly. He knew what he wanted. He knew what he was doing.
Yeah, isn't it true that Bill wanted Phil Simms, but didn't trade up, and the Giants took him, and Bill was despondent, and Tony Rosano was like, "It's all right, man. There's this guy at Notre Dame who's a gamer. I mean, he leads these comebacks. He's a good player, and isn't that how he? Isn't how the
That's
Niners
what I.
got Joe Montana?
That's what I've heard a lot. That he
Yeah,
wanted Sims and he settled for Montana. Interesting, but once he got Joe, he knew what to do with him.
yeah. And you could give
Iggy,
Kyle the same kind of credit, like he wanted, whatever, and he ended up with Brock Purdy, and then it worked out. But he still got to win a Super Bowl, and you know,
Iggy, I want to
pretty
say one other
frustrating for
thing.
this.
I want to say one other thing about Bill Walsh in the draft. Have I ever told you this on the air? There was this actor named Bradford Dillman that you wouldn't even know who he was. He was from my generation, Bradford Dillman. He was a TV character actor. Somehow he got to know Bill, and he was a real 49ers fan. He lived in LA, 49ers fan. So Bill said, "Why don't you be in the draft room with us in the war room?" So he would invite Bradford Dillman to the war. This is a true story, and he did it more than once, from what I understand. And Bradford was serious. He would come with notes, and he would follow every round. And one year they had one. This I know for a fact. They had one pick left, and Bill, I guess he had finished what he wanted to do, and he said, "Bradford, you make the pick." And Bradford Dillman, the actor, made the final pick in the draft one time for Bill Walsh. That's an absolutely true story. So even as hot as Bill was, he had a sense of humor that he let Bradford Dillman in. He let him make a pick.
That's a great story.
Yeah, it's
All
true.
right.